When it comes to working with a builder and you decided, hey, I'm going to build a brand new home from the ground up, I want you to be careful, because if you're not, you're probably going to end up with some serious sticker shock on what the final price actually is. So today we're going to talk about what you see advertised versus what actually happens in the process, and how you can help maybe along the way ease some of that pain and take away some of that sticker shock. Because the last thing I want you to do is get into building your dream home and think it costs one thing, and then get to the end of the process and be like, oh, that was not at all what we intended to spend our money on. So let's start here. First place I want to start is when you're looking online and you're looking in new communities and you're looking at a builder's website and you start seeing advertised pricing, right? And it's like, oh, this house starts at $399, or this is $347, or this is $432, or $571, or whatever it is. So there's two different avenues that we have to look at. First one I want to look at is inventory homes. And an inventory home is something that the builder has already started. They've probably picked the design on, or somebody else picked the design on, and they couldn't close on it. Whatever it is, like, it's a home that's already started. And so those numbers you'll probably see are a little bit more concrete, right? So if you see it, hey, this is a quick move-in home and it closes in the next 45 days. And it's listed at $472,981. That number is probably a little bit more concrete, close to what you're going to pay, but you also have the ability to negotiate on that number. So that's one, like I said, that the builder has already started. They've already put in plans and permits and designs. They're already working on it, so they kind of have a general idea of what's going to be in that house. They do know, like, structural, they know location, they know the design, so that's where they get to that price. So that's the one that you can kind of look at and say, oh, we want to move in quickly. We like this house. We like the floor plan. We like the location. We want to take that house. And there's usually room to negotiate on that particular home. It depends on the builder, depends on the community, 5, 10, 15, just depends. There's so many factors that kind of go into that. You have a little bit of wiggle room on that negotiating power if you're doing that. The thing that's more fluid and a little bit more gray is when you decide, hey, you're building from the ground up, and you're going to get to select everything that goes into the process. So the way that'll work is you'll start and you'll say, hey, here's the floor plan that we like. We're looking at the whole catalog, and here's the floor plan. And that floor plan, the base price on that floor plan is $400,000. And so then you're like, oh yeah, we're going to get this house for $400,000. And then you start making all these design changes and it quickly becomes $480,000. And you're like, wait a minute, I was not expecting to spend that $80,000, right? So if you don't know this, it can kind of be like a feeling when you get ready to work through this process with a builder. So if you're thinking you want to build, here's kind of the steps that we work through, that I work through with my clients and want to help make sure that you can do when you're getting ready to build your next home. If we haven't met before, my name is Zach. My team and I, we sell new construction here in DFW. That is our specialty. That's what we love to do. And if you have questions about new construction, whether you're buying off a builder's inventory and you want to save the most money possible, or you want to build and you want to make sure you make the right decisions, I would love to work with you, would love to help you. Our contact information is right down below. Reach out to us if we can help, walk you through that transaction, represent you, and help you get into your dream home. Whether you live here in DFW already or you're relocating, that is how we love to help, and that's what we love to do. So as we talk about building with a builder, so you've got the base price of the plan. And I wish somebody would have told me this one of the first times we actually built a home. We've got the base price of the plan, and we're sitting in the builder's office, and it's like, oh, hey, well, what about that? And it's like, oh, that's an upgrade. Oh, well, what about this? Oh, that's an upgrade. And all I'm seeing is like just dollar signs rolling, and it's like, oh, yep, there's $10,000 there. Oh, there's $15,000 there. Oh, there's $5,000 there, right? And it gets a little crazy. So for example, one of the, we were going to build a floor plan, and this floor plan we were considering had the option to add a second floor to it. And it was like, hey, add a second floor, and the second floor is basically a game room, a bedroom, and a bathroom. So it's kind of like adding a half floor. I remember asking our salesperson, I was like, hey, I think we want to add that. She goes, oh, that's $50,000. Yeah, I don't want it anymore. Yeah, give me a different floor plan. So you're going to spend a lot. There's a couple places you're going to spend money. One, you're going to spend it on a lot premium potentially. So if you're looking at the builder's map of the development and you're seeing all these different lots, they're going to tell you, hey, this floor plan will only fit on this lot or in this space or here or there or whatever. And you're going to have a kind of a limited selection of where you can choose from. And then of course you're like, oh, I want a corner lot, or oh, I want cul-de-sac lot, or oh, we don't want any back neighbors. Those lots are going to have a premium attached to them. And I've seen those premiums anywhere from $3,000 to $90,000, depending on the development, depending on the neighborhood, depending on how big the lot is. So just know, like, first off the bat, if you want a more premium lot, you're going to have to pay the price on top of the base price for that premium lot. Here's what I will tell you. Lot premiums are a great place to negotiate. Again, not saying that they're going to give you that $90,000 lot for $10,000, but it is a place where, when you're talking about how you can save money, it is somewhere that if you play your cards right and you know kind of how to have that conversation, there is potential that you could negotiate that lot premium. I've seen builders was like, hey, the lot premium's 25 and we've gotten it down to 12. And that was just, circumstance of that particular neighborhood. I've seen other times where it's like, hey, the lot premium's 15 and they gave it to us for 13. I was like, well, feels like a little bit of a win. So lot premiums are a great place to negotiate if you want to try and save a little money. Otherwise, if you don't want to save, if you're not worried about it, like, pick a lot that does not have a premium, right? Just look at the map, drive out there, look at it, walk the lot, make sure you feel like you like how it feels. Pay attention to which direction it faces. Some people like, hey, we have to have a north facing lot, or hey, we have to have a east facing lot, or in Texas, you want to kind of, my preference always is personally, like, I like a north facing lot just because it means the sun goes across my house this way, not across my house this way, which means, because like in the summer, if you have like an east west facing lot, because the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, if your backyard sits like that, it almost makes your backyard unusable because it's so hot in the summer, and you don't really want that if you want to be outside. So if you don't care about the lot, then just take one that's not got a premium on it. If you care about the lot, you can potentially negotiate the premium. Now, also, when you're working with this builder on a contract, usually on a build job, most builders have some sort of design incentive that they'll give you to use. This varies builder to builder. Sometimes it's 10,000, 15, 20. Sometimes it scales based on how much you spend. So it's like, oh, if you spend 25, we'll give you 10,000 extra. If you spend 50, we'll give you 30,000 extra. It really just depends, but they're going to give you some sort of design incentive to use on your home. And again, builder to builder, it varies how you can use that. Some of them say, hey, you can use that on lot premium. You can use it on structure upgrades. You can use it on stuff in the design center. Some say it's only things in the design center. So just know, like, ask that question when you go in, hey, how can I use this money? And a lot of times people are like, oh, they're giving me $25,000. That feels like a lot. And you're like, I mean, yes, it is. Don't get me wrong. $25,000, a lot of money. But if you decide, hey, we want to take all the carpet out and we want to go with like a luxury vinyl plank, and your house is over 2,000 square feet, you probably just spent a good majority of that design allotment, if we're being honest. Like, the biggest places that you spend money is in flooring, and kitchens. Like, those are usually the things that take the most amount of money out of those design allotments, right? So you can always, they advertise, hey, here's what we're doing. It's 10, it's 15, it's 20, whatever. You can always ask for more money. That's part of, again, the negotiating power when you are working with a builder, and again, working with a realtor that understands new construction. You can always ask for more money. Worst thing they can tell you is no, right? So you're like, hey, we've got a $25,000 allotment. Can we make it 35? Like, come on, man. Like, sometimes they'll say yes. The pro tip in this is usually the sales counselor in the neighborhood has a little bit of like back pocket money that they can use without having to get approval from management. Like, they've been told, hey, do this, but you can actually, you can do this. Anything beyond that, they probably have to get approval from management for. So you want them to like you. Like, this is not the time when we go in, like, we're not trying to strong arm our way into getting everything that we want and being a jerk, right? Because at a certain point, they're going to have to get approval from their management. And if they go to their management and they say, hey, man, this guy's asking for all of this money and he was a real jerk to deal with, just tell me no. They're going to tell you no. Versus, hey, we've got this really great family. We love them. I think we connected well. They're going to be a great fit in our neighborhood. They're asking if they can get an extra $10,000. And I think it would mean the world to them. And it makes sure that we get this home sold. Like, that's a very different message going to management who's never met you, who has no connection to you whatsoever. So you want your realtor, and you want to be firm, but you want to be gracious. You want to be kind. You want to remember that's a human being on the other side of that transaction, and you want them on your side, to be honest. So builder's going to give you money, and very quickly you're going to spend all of it really fast. I always tell people my healthy number usually is 12 to 15% of base price. It's probably what you're going to spend in structure, design, and upgrades. That sometimes you spend a little bit more, but most of the time figure that's probably going to be the total cost, and then take off your design spending on top of that. So you've got that accordingly. Also, this is kind of the point where you need to have some priorities in order. Like you and your wife or husband or boyfriend, whoever is like part of the financial decision making, y'all kind of need to be on the same page of what is a priority on how we spend our money, right? I always say, hey, let's prioritize the things that can't be changed later. Like you can't pick your house up and move it 2 lots down the road. So you need to get the right lot. You're not going to really change the exterior of your home. So make sure you get that right. The floor plan, you really need to get that right. So if there's 2 floor plans and you're like, really, you want to try and get that one right. And then of course, anything structural. So, 3rd car garages, extra bathrooms, more storage, media rooms, anything that you can add structurally, covered patios. Those are probably the things that are probably you would want to prioritize spending your money on. Flooring, of course, can always be changed later. Is it a pain? Yes, but it can be done. Countertops changed later. Is it a pain? Yes. But if you're prioritizing how you spend your money, I would say location, elevation, floor plan, and structural upgrades need to be first priority on what you do to make changes to that floor plan. Now, the question is, can you negotiate? Not really. Yes, no. There's a chance that on a build job you can negotiate off the base price of the home. You're most likely not going to negotiate on structural options. Those are calculated based on, hey, here's the labor, the material. Like here's those changes we have to make. Same thing in a design center. Like you're not going into the design center and the designer is going to say, hey, it's going to cost. This is our level 3 flooring, and to cover your entire bottom floor, it's going to be $18,500. And you're like, man, I really like $14,200. You're not going to negotiate on the cost of something. You have a better chance of negotiating on A, lower the base price, and B, more incentive money. That's where you're really going to find your negotiating power, not necessarily in like, well, my cousin Daryl is a floor guy. We don't care. Like they don't care. The cost to design it is the cost to design it. There's not like, I wish I could tell you, oh, it's significantly more expensive or it's significantly cheaper. There are some things that'll be like, don't do that. Like drawer handles and pools, like don't do that. They charge a stupid amount of money most of the time to do that. But flooring, it's like, it is what it is. It prices out about the same. It's a convenience factor, right? It's like, hey, do we want to have to buy a brand new house and then have to do all these changes, or do we just want to be able to move into it? And that's what you have to decide, because some people are like, no, we're going to do the bare minimum because I got a cousin who's got a truck and knows a guy, and we found some stuff that fell off the back of the truck and we're going to do that. I'm like, cool, do that. Other clients are like, nah, no, we want to move in and our house be ready to go. I don't want to do anything. This is our final house. Like, you just have to decide that and know that you're going to spend the money accordingly. So we're not negotiating on price of structural changes or price of design. We are negotiating on potentially base price being a little bit lower, potentially. We are negotiating on lot premiums being lower. We are negotiating and asking for more money in design and more money in closing costs to help offset some of that money that we're going to spend. Now, while we're talking about design, the other thing that like sticker shocks a lot of people often is you're going to make an additional design deposit. So if we're building this home, you're going to make an initial deposit when we contract, and most likely you're going to make another deposit for the design aspect of that house. It varies builder to builder and community to community. 10% of design, 50% of design, $5,000, like whatever it is. Like once you finalize it and you green light and say, yes, this is the stuff we want to do, builder's going to require you to make some sort of additional deposit. You can work with them on that. Sometimes you just have to ask, right? If it's like, hey, this needs to be 50%. And it's like, well, we don't have 50% right now, but we know it's going to take 8 months. Can we do, half and half? Like, can we work it out like a payment plan? I've seen that happen before. You just have to ask, and you don't want anybody to get caught off guard. So here's kind of how the rundown goes. You green light it, say you're good to go. The sales counselor reaches out to you and your realtor and says, hey, here's the info. We're good. We need this much deposit. And you say, yeah, we'll totally do that. and then you don't do it, and then their management's looking at them, it's like, hey, they didn't make their deposit, and then they got to chase you down. And it's like, well, why didn't they make their deposit? And you're like, I don't know what's going on. Just communicate with people and ask and say, hey, this is, we want to do this. Can we spread out a deposit over 4 payments or 5 payments? Sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no, but you never know really until you ask. Spend the money accordingly. You're going to spend it. Like, it's going to get added to the bill. And also recognize that adding that money into your like finance stuff, it's not going to change your payment too terribly much. It's going to change it a little bit. Don't get me wrong. The more you spend, like obviously the more it's going to cost you monthly. But in the grand scheme of it, it's not going to make a massive difference unless you just go crazy and put every single upgrade ever in your home. And I would advise against that. You don't want to be the most expensive home in the neighborhood. You don't want to be the least expensive home in the neighborhood. You want to hit right in the middle. Be ideally 12 to 15%. That puts us kind of right in the middle of where we're supposed to be. There's a lot goes into designing homes. That it's a stressful thing, but it's a fun thing. It's exciting, and you should be able to enjoy this process. The other sticker shock thing that I see that people worry about, that we've had this conversation with, is what happens when the house doesn't appraise. So appraisal is when we get to the end, our build process, we're getting ready to close on your loan, and the builder's lender or whoever you use as a lender, you're going to have an appraisal, because the bank wants to know if we're loaning you many hundreds of thousands of dollars, that what we're loaning on is actually worth what we're loaning you. Crazy, I know. So what happens if it doesn't appraise? Well, that's where things get interesting, right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because it does. There are ways, and I don't want to say that things get manipulated, because it's hard. The appraiser is a third party that is hired by the lender. So they don't like work in-house with a lender. They are hired outside as a third party, but there are ways that those things can kind of be manipulated, if that makes sense. So if you're working with the builder's lender and you are building in a new community, it is most of the time, in my experience, usually the home appraises right at or right above what you're contracted for. It's kind of a miracle how that works. Where it gets hard is if you're in a new, like the first phases of a community, or we're in like, and they don't have anything to compare against, or we're kind of deeper in and the builder has started doing discounts on and price reductions on inventory, and the market shifts. That's where we start to see a little bit of those gaps. And so what happens when there's a gap is we kind of have to come to the table and have a conversation. First and foremost, the builder's going to tell you, well, here's the contract that you signed for the purchase price. Technically, you're obligated for that purchase price. But my experience when we work with quality builders is they're usually working with us to cover that difference, right? So if it's a small number, and I say small, anything under $30,000 in retrospect is small. Most of the time, you're probably seeing a price reduction from the builder to cover part of it, or additional closing costs, or combination of those things to help get us to that point to where we're meeting the appraisal space. If we don't get that, and you still want to purchase the home, you're going to have to come to the table with the additional funds to meet the gap, right? So let's say your purchase price was $450, it appraised for $440, and the builder won't come down to $440. Like, you could only get a loan amount up to the value of $440, and you would have to have the additional 10 grand to cover the difference if you want to do that. And that's kind of a probably last case, worst case scenario, if I'm honest. This is also the point where it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, of how gracious and kind, like how we handle this situation. But also, this is the point where, as the kids say, or as I heard the slang, you stand on business, and we stand firm and we ask the builder to solve our problem. Right? So this is where it's like, hey, how customized is this home? Can they, realistically, can they actually resell this home? Like, is somebody going to buy this home based on your design choices? Maybe, probably. Hey, is it the end of a month? Is it the end of a quarter? Is it the end of a phase? Is it the end of a community? And they just need to get this home sold. Do they have a waiting list of people that are trying to buy the house, and they're not worried? Like, if you bust, they can sell it tomorrow. All of these things kind of come together, but you got to stand on the business and be like, hey, if we didn't appraise, I need some help. Like, and this is not, I would say in 100 transactions, it's probably 3 to 5 that haven't appraised. And then most of the time the builder is reducing the price or giving them a credit or adding closing funds. It's usually what happens. But the majority of time, at least in my experience here lately, when we build, or we are buying off the builder's inventory, we are appraising above or right at what we're buying for, which means we're in a good spot. But I always want you to be prepared in case you're like, oh, in case that doesn't happen, because that's another sticker shock thing, right? Last sticker shock thing I would give you in this video is when we talk about property taxes. And we've talked about a lot today. So property taxes, you have to know when you buy a home or when you build a home here in Texas, our property taxes are expensive. If you're new here and you're coming here, you probably don't know, you may not know that 1.9 to like 3.2% is what we pay on average in property taxes. That adds up to somewhere between $400 and $1,100 a month, depending on how expensive the house is that you're buying. But what's going to happen is the first year, so like let's say, you know, it's just dirt and then you close on the home in April. Well, the county office is only assessing the value of the land without the structure on it. And so then the next year, you're going to pay the value of the land plus the value of the structure. And so if you don't set your escrow accounts up correctly, or if you don't budget correctly, you're going to have sticker shock because your payment's going to go from, hey, I was paying 2.4% on a $40,000 piece of land, and now I'm paying 2.4% on a $410,000 property, or you know, whatever the number, and that number is going to jump significantly. So make sure when you talk to the lender with the builder, like that they set, if you have an escrow account, that you have it set up accordingly, that for your projected taxes, for the like completed, like updated performance, updated structure, like make sure that they set that up correctly, or you're going to have sticker shock. When it comes to building and buying, I don't want you to have that. I want you to have the peace of mind. I want you to enjoy this process. I want to help you get into a new home. So as always, if I can help, I want to do that. But again, our contact information for my team is down below. Reach out if you have questions. If you're at the point now and you're like, hey, I don't know, like who's a good builder, who's a bad builder, and where should we look and who should we avoid, check out this playlist because we've talked about a lot of different builders here in DFW, and I can show you, hey, here's who I love and here's who you might want to avoid. So here's a playlist to help with that. Thanks for hanging out. We will see you guys in our next video. Bye for now.